Hello, everyone. Dr. Cap's coming back again today for another episode of our podcast and our YouTube channel, Dancing with the Darkness. Just some housekeeping, real quick, before we get started. If you are a recurring if you're a subscriber or a recurring listener or watcher, just want to thank you so much. And your support is what keeps us going, keeps this channel going. We're only here to help, and so our voice gets magnified, obviously, when our followers like and share. And your comments are great. I love the comments, so please keep those going. It really is some affirmation and validation of the work I'm trying to do. Very, very appreciated. If you're a first-time listener, I just want to give you a quick synopsis. This is a pretty raw and unfiltered channel and podcast about CPTSD in general. We do talk about operator syndrome, PTSD, and we touch a lot on anxiety and depression because there's a lot of similarities there. It's primarily focused on CPTSD, and the reason why is because I am a CPTSD survivor that has gone on to thrive and be able to use my pain and turn it into purpose. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing this channel, is to help others that are going through this and helping them understand that it doesn't have to be a life sentence of pain or dysfunction, that we can experience healing. We can turn all of this pain into purpose, and the ultimate purpose, of course, is to help our brothers and sisters out there that are suffering. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope today's podcast speaks to you. It is a subject that I have been avoiding because it's very, very personal to me, but at the same token, it's something that we must talk about, especially with CPTSD. I want to talk about what's called abuse by proxy, and I want to define that in two ways. First off, because CPTSD, the big component of that that's different from other illnesses or other issues that people have with mental health, is that we have a huge part of this that is developmental trauma from growing up in an abusive household or growing up in a traumatic household. And we need to understand that abuse by proxy is a form of child abuse when it happens with children. And it's exactly what by proxy means. It's basically when not only the caregiver, your mother, your father, whoever the caregiver is abusing you, but they are literally manipulating or using other individuals or even inviting other individuals into the scenario so that there are multiple abusers. And this can look like physical abuse, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse. So we could classify sex trafficking even or sexual exploitation is a form of abuse by proxy, because there are several individuals that end up abusing this child. Very, very sad. So we have a cumulative effect. We also have the fact that this really gives the inner and the outer critic a large voice in your life, because unfortunately, even when we try to do stuff like cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy, or where we're looking at evidence to support our beliefs or change our beliefs, it's very, very hard to do that when all of the evidence of your life, if you had to go to a courtroom and present it, all of the evidence, unfortunately, seems to support the beliefs of the inner and the outer critic. We've gone over this in past videos, so I encourage you very much to please look at some of our other videos if you have questions about the inner and the outer critic. We talk about that a lot, and that's because that's huge. Two huge components of CPTSD is dealing with that inner and that outer critic. And so abuse by proxy, once again, is a huge megaphone level statistic that we have to put in here as far as CPTSD, because a lot of this happened during the developmental phase. But I want to talk about how this continues on in adulthood as well, and what that looks like. And I'm not going to call us victims. I'm just going to call us individuals that are more sensitive, or we are individuals that are more likely to be exploited in this way. And it's because it's what we've known, it's what we've grown up in, it is what has shaped and formed us, it is what in a lot of ways, unfortunately, defines us. This is our world. We don't necessarily like it. We know somewhere inside of us that it's not right, but at the same time, we've grown so accustomed to this that it's just a sense of normalcy to be in this dysfunction and to be around toxic individuals, or to be even in relationships with individuals that do this form of abuse. This type of abuse is a little bit harder to pick up on. If you told somebody you were being abused and then you tried to explain what was going on with abuse by proxy, it's not as direct as if you said, hey, she hit me over the head with a frying pan, or, I can't do anything right and she tells me I'm an idiot. These things are a little bit more obvious. They're a little bit more easy for us to process. This happens, in a little less obtrusive way, and it's when these proxies get involved, which are basically individuals that are participating in the abuse. Some of them are fully aware of what they're doing, but sometimes they're not fully aware, and so this is where it really gets tricky. Some people, based on the manipulative nature of the person who's exploiting you or abusing you, has convinced these other people by manipulating them, and they feel like they're giving you tough love or they're genuinely helping, and it's based on the narrative of the abuser, and it makes things very, very difficult to process. It makes things very, very hard to understand in a lot of ways. And so sometimes we see these abusive people by proxy. They really genuinely don't know that they're harming the person. They've been pulled into this narrative designed to control and isolate the target. This is the whole key to this, is that this abuser is trying to isolate and control us, and if they're not necessarily achieving that on their own, sometimes they will pull in other resources. And I want to say, with my experience, if you've come from an abusive family and you have a complete and total disconnect from your family of origin, and maybe you get into a marriage or into a relationship, and so this person's family kind of becomes your family, but at the end of the day, we need to realize that blood is thicker than water, and if it comes down between you and your spouse and their family, they're going to choose their child. They're going to choose their relative, their blood, over you. And so a lot of times, in the name of helping you see your ways or see your harmful ways or whatever they're trying to do, they can get pulled into this narrative. And it makes perfect sense, because you got to understand, if the person is oppressing you or abusing you, they probably came from a very similar background with what happened to them, and it was generational. And so, their family is not necessarily healthy either, and so many of them do all of these same techniques, the gaslighting, the emotional abuse, all of the triangulation, all of these things are still at play, and so it's just one big mess. And sometimes even the abuser may be using this as a way to be better on better terms with their family, right? If we all have a common enemy, which is the person that you're abusing, and that's our target, then we're actually on the same team for once. And I know that sounds sick and sadistic and evil, but unfortunately this is the psychology, and this is what happens. From a faith-based point of view, we would call this a family curse, a curse that's lasted generations, and no one has taken the steps to intervene, not only psychologically with their mental health to change this, but bigger than that, they haven't made the decision to accept Christ into their heart and to really lean on where the real power is, which is with God. God can change things that I could therapize and proselytize for years, trying to get you to change a behavior or your thought processes, and it may never happen, but God can come into your heart and he can change things immediately. And that is the real hope here that I try to bring to this channel and to this podcast. Everything that we talk about, I'm going to bring God in here, because I have to be honest and truthful, and it's God who saved me. And I mean, not just saved my soul, but He saved me physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I know where that power is, and I know the change that it's made in my life, and it's been the ultimate way for me to give back. So we need to understand that these can either be classified as family curses from a faith point of view, or we can call them, the toxic family of origin, the chain of abuse through psychological circles. But it is going to be repetitive, and it just continues until we become cycle breakers. And that's another major motivation of this channel and this podcast, is to help you, no matter how old you are, no matter how long it's taken you to get to this point. If you're still living and breathing, you can be a cycle breaker. It's never too late. Okay, so I want you to understand that. So what are some examples of some of these scenarios with this abuse by proxy? A lot of times it's about them telling false or exaggerated stories to others, and they're doing this to isolate their target from their support system. I've been through this many times where, you may have a group of friends or a group of acquaintances, whether they're from church or from whatever, and then it gets to the point where, the abuser is, sidelining with some of these individuals, and they're giving just enough personal information to make them look good and to make you look bad. And this starts developing this opinion or this judgment with these other individuals about the person who's being abused. And the sad thing is you never even get a chance to defend yourself. You never get a chance to show them the truth or to tell them the truth. These things have already been formed. These opinions, these judgments, by this point have already been formed and solidified because they've been listening to this narrative. And you got to remember, this abuser is very articulate. They're very manipulative. They have a lot of skills at their disposal, and so it's not hard for them to convince others that you are whatever they're saying that you are. And so this furthers the isolation, which more isolation for you means more control for them. That's how this works. In some instances, there's been very, very common where the spouse or the partner will call CPS, or they'll call the police a bunch of times and develop a false narrative where nothing actually really happened, but they start getting it on record. And this is classic with narcissistic abuse, but we see this pattern develop where they start making even the officials, such as law enforcement or CPS or whoever, they're making reports and they're writing down narratives, and even if it's not true, it's making a file or a case against you, a false case. And once again, this is used for manipulation and control, because let's say that you decide, hey, I got to get out of this relationship. Well, now they have things that they can use against you. If you leave, I'm going to call the police and say that you hurt me, or I'm going to make sure, based on this reporting to CPS, that you never see your children again. So this is another powerful manipulation tactic used to control you. And so the abuse by proxy there is that these agencies that get involved, they become part of who's persecuting you, to no fault of their own, but due to this false narrative. And so they end up contributing to what's happening to you, which is just absolutely devastating many times. This is a big one. They will, we're going to go into parental alienation a little bit later, but this is a form of it. They will use your own children, and they'll do this in a way where they influence them to reject or fear one of their parents or caregivers without cause. So they start manipulating your children to make them think that you are this thing, that you're this threat, or you're this thing that you're really not. And they start convincing your own children to go against you. And once again, this is very controlling, very manipulative, very powerful attack, very, very powerful abuse, absolutely devastating. They will also do this with mutual acquaintances, and they'll start getting these acquaintances to, hey, why don't you watch this guy or watch this woman? So now these mutual acquaintances are looking, and we know our imagination can manifest a lot, but now we're looking intently for these things in that partner who's being abused. So let's say that they said, hey, he's abusive to the animals or something. And so now, these mutual acquaintances are watching you like a hawk around your animals all of a sudden. Let's see if he really is hurting these animals. And oftentimes, like me, your animals are everything to you. Mine, all of mine follow me around like the Pied Piper. So the evidence is there that obviously nothing's happening to them. So these are just some examples of some of these, these false narratives that develop. And these behaviors are not very easily discoverable on the outside. That's what's so tough about this, is that this manipulative abuser has masked these things as a concern or protection. They're constantly trying to adjust the narrative to where they look like the good person or the big person or the one who's doing everything right, and they're alienating the person who's being abused by proxy by doing so. So it's very, very hard for the outside world to even really realize what's going on. Anyone involved in a situation with an emotionally manipulative person can be affected by abuse by proxy. It can be anyone. So if this is you, if you're going through this, it's really important that I need you to understand that your inner critic, whatever it's telling you right now by listening to this, you need to understand that this isn't a flaw in you. This is part of what the inner critic does, is it makes us feel like, okay, well, I'm being abused by proxy because I've done something wrong, or I'm just, I let it happen, whatever. These are all lies, okay? We're talking about a very emotionally manipulative and abusive person that is doing this to you. They have mastered their craft. They have been taught this craft by generations of abusers. And so it's the very essence of you being usually a very loving, caring person that can make us fit some victimology here. But it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. We need to understand that the problem is with the oppressor and with the abuser. That's where the problem is. This is not okay to do this to anyone. And so this is not something that we need to put on ourselves and have the inner critic make us feel like it's our fault that we got involved with this person and we take the blame. This can happen to anyone. There are, however, some certain dynamics that make individuals particularly vulnerable. Like I first said, if we've had developmental trauma and abuse by our parents and we've been brought up in that and this is all we know, we can be a little bit more vulnerable to this type of attack because this is what we're used to. And once again, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means that people did bad things to you, okay? Bad things happened to you, trauma happened to you, abuse happened to you by someone else. This is not your fault. You didn't ask for it. You didn't, wave a sign in the street that says, hey, come and abuse me. None of these things. You were born into the world in God's image just like everyone else. And it's unfortunate, but some of us were born into this type of situation. And the light at the end of the tunnel here that I must continue to encourage you with is that we can take all of these experiences, this unbelievable experience that we've had in life, that we've survived, and imagine the good that we can do with this when we master ourselves and we can help other people that are going through this, because there's a lot of us out there that have dealt with this. And last time I checked, the world is not getting any better. It is not any better of a place, for sure. It seems to be in decline. So we need to be out there helping others. And so that's what we hope to achieve with this podcast and with this channel. is giving you some tools to do this. Let's look at some commonly affected groups by abuse by proxy. There's going to be individuals that are already in controlling relationships, obviously, whether it be an emotionally manipulative marriage or any kind of relationship. Those that have been targeted by domestic violence or emotional abuse, especially when they're trying to exit the relationship. Like I said earlier, you're trying to get out of the relationship, and so this person is losing their power, they're losing their control, and so this is when abuse by proxy starts to happen, because now they're going to pool in some more resources to get to you, to try to crush you, to exploit whatever you're feeling, whether it be shame, guilt, whatever. Shame and guilt are synonymous with this, because if you've been abused as a child and traumatized as a child, we just exist with shame and guilt that are false, and so they will use that to exploit you as well. Parents that are in a high conflict custody battle over children that have split up, this is a huge time where we see abuse by proxy, where they're pulling in whatever resources they can to harm the other person, especially the children, which is absolutely devastating. The children actually get caught between these two adversarial parents or caregivers, and it's not just devastating to the person that's being parentally alienated, it's also very devastating to the children. It's absolutely and completely unfair to them, and traumatizes them. But this emotionally manipulative person that is trying to isolate and abuse you or to control you, they obviously are not 100% caring about what happens to their children, even, because they just want to get what they want. And anyone who gets in the way is going to face their wrath. And that's just the way that this worked. There's also well-meaning family members or professionals, like I said, with these agencies that are unknowingly pulled into these one-sided narratives. So this person gets ahead of the curve. They know that they're losing control of the partner that they're abusing, and so now they start developing this narrative right away, because they want whoever's around them to not have a chance to ever become part of your support system. They want them to become part of their support system. And truth be told, if they knew what was really going on, it would be a whole different scenario. But they've been brainwashed and morphed into this feeling that oh well, we're going to get a divorce, and it's because Bob is doing this, and this, when it's really not the case at all. And so that's how this happens. We've done the false reporting to the agencies. Maybe we've gone to get some counseling, and we've given all of this narrative to our counselor that we are the victim. There's lots and lots of ways that they're building this case against you off of falsities and off of lies. So what are some warning signs of abuse by proxy? If this triggers you, that's okay. Or if it causes you an emotional flashback. We have lots of techniques we've gone over in our videos, the grounding techniques, breathing, and such. If you feel like this is something that you can't handle right now, it's fine to go ahead and cut this episode off. But I want to talk about some warning signs. And some of these you may already know. Some of you may be in relationships and something's not quite right. And these are going to resonate with you. And that's the first step, is for us to understand that this is happening to us, and then we start working on ways to cope, and we start working on ways in a healthy, safe way to get out of these relationships. Okay. Maybe there's a close or relationship or relationships that are breaking down due to sudden unverified claims, like somebody's talking crap behind your back, your partner, and so the relationship starts to demise based on these lies. Third parties involving themselves in intimate matters without a clear role is important to understand. So once again, they're given some intel on some of the intimacies of your relationship that you don't know about, and they have this knowledge But not only do they have this knowledge, but it's kind of like what the devil does. He mixes lies with the truth. So now we have lies and the truth kind of mixed together in this narrative. So part of it is true, part of it is not. And it starts getting really complicated. If there's, like I said, if there's unwanted or unfounded calls to agencies like police or CPS, okay, you're definitely in a relationship that's abuse by proxy. If you feel like you're being constantly surveilled or monitored by people that you once trusted, that trusted you, it's a big red flag, because you've given them no reason whatsoever to not trust you, and you've given them no reason to surveil you or to monitor you, okay? And it's a very uncomfortable feeling to do that. So when if you're feeling like you're always being watched, judged, or reported on, it can lead to a heightened state of anxiety, obviously. Over time, the effects on mental health can become even more significant if we're not careful with this. So let's look at, how children are used in this. This is a big one. Children who are being used as proxies in this way may show behaviors that feel out of sync with their past personality or current developmental stage. For example, they may show signs like language that sounds like it's more coming from an adult and not a child. They'll say things way beyond their years that make no sense, that it's obviously that's not their narrative. They didn't come up with that on their own. This is something that they're being fed, and now it's coming out of their mouth. Withdrawal, possibly from previously enjoyable time with one caregiver. So let's say that, my son has been my fishing buddy for 15 years, and now all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I don't want to go fishing with you anymore, Dad. Something's literally fishy, haha, with that situation, okay? This is out of character. There's no reason for him not to want to go, so something's obviously going on. Also, if we see reluctance to talk about shared memories of good experience with the alienated parent. So like, hey, Joe Jr., do you remember when we did this and we did this? And they're like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about that, Dad. So something that was a fond memory or a fond experience, they don't want to talk about that anymore. And that's kind of part of this alienation phase that we see. These are not going to happen all at once. This is going to be very gradual. They often unfold very gradually, making them harder to spot. So that's why we have to be really observant and really start to try to figure it out, because it's not going to be this abrupt change like that. It's going to be very, very gradual. They do happen to coincide with ongoing disputes or manipulation by the other caregiver, though. Okay, so this is where we really see the red flags, is that we will see the children's behavior change based on what the manipulative partner is doing, or if they are in conflict with the other parent or the other caregiver. We could also go into Munchausen syndrome, which is part of abuse by proxy, but we won't go into that because that's not necessarily appropriate to what we're talking about with CPTSD. That's a whole nother form of abuse, really, that is a total different set of manipulation. So what are some of these mental health, these are probably things that you're going to identify, obviously, if you've been through or are going through abuse by proxy. There's going to be a heightened sense of anxiety, of emotional reactivity to things. We're going to have that hypervigilance, that wonderful thing that most of us have with CPTSD anyway, but it's going to be very, very heightened in the social institutional settings. We're going to start really having some hypervigilance in social settings, because this other person has spread this false narrative on us. And so this is all part of that isolation. We start getting very uncomfortable even being around other individuals, even if they're our family, because we feel like everybody is our enemy, because that's what this person has manipulated others into. Even the ones, like I said, that don't realize what they're doing, they're trying to help. It all feels like an oppressive attack on us when we've had this abuse by proxy. you're going to have, we already have difficulty trusting people with CPTSD. You're going to have a heightened sense of not trusting people because, like I said, even the people that you did trust that you felt were not necessarily on your side, but were even with you, these people have been manipulated, and now they are doing things and expressing things that are out of character and do not reflect amicable relationships. And so you start to not trust anybody. It's almost like this big, three-letter agency conspiracy in your life. Who has this person not gotten to? Who has this person not lied to about me? Is there anywhere safe? Is there anywhere that I can be where people see the truth? So it can cause some paranoia even. In my experience, it causes some pretty persistent depression because, once again, we were designed to be social animals by God. We were designed to fellowship. We were designed to be loved and to be cared for and to be social and to be part of a pack. And so when we are isolated this way, and not only are we isolated, but we feel like the whole world is out to get us, and then we have an outer critic that is blaring through a megaphone, reinforcing that no one is safe, it can cause some pretty severe depression. And this is normal because it's not what we're designed to do. We are not designed to be alone. We are not designed to be on our own. We are designed to give love and affection to others and to receive it. And when these things are taken from us, it's going to be a natural progression to enter into a depression and to have the anxiety. And it also will absolutely strengthen and really put a highlight on our already struggling self-esteem and self-worth. We, as a CPTSD survivor, we already have struggled with self-worth and self-esteem, and this just continues to erode that because of what's happened, because this lie, this narrative that's being spread by proxy about you is just taking away what little self-worth you may have had for yourself, and it's very easy to just start believing it yourself and to lose all of your self-worth. When children are pulled into these dynamics, the psychological consequences can affect them significantly as well. The children that are pulled in by proxy to be part of this abuse, they're going to have some conflicted loyalty between caregivers. They're going to have some confusion. They're going to have insecure attachments. This is how we start this whole process of our own children going into the world having insecure attachments and being jacked up in every relationship they have. This is a huge part of how that happens. Even if they haven't been a product of child abuse, when we start seeing abuse by proxy where the one caregiver or spouse is trying to hurt the other and they get pulled into it, it does have a direct effect on their attachment strategies, and many times it can become insecure. We also see a very high instance of anxiety, nightmares even, and sometimes emotional shutdown, where they just shut down and they don't know what to feel or how to feel it. They don't feel safe having any emotions. They start having repetitive thoughts that they're bad and that they need to choose a side. And that's awful because you're like a piece of rope getting pulled back and forth in a tug of war. And so kids are very, very confused. Am I right to be on mommy's side or am I right to be on daddy's side? This is going to put them at higher risk for abusive relationships themselves. So there's some pretty severe ramifications when it comes to abuse by proxy. So we've talked about all of these things. We've talked about what it looks like. If you're like me, you're feeling this very deeply. It's hitting you in a very powerful way because you've experienced it, and it's a very, very deep moral wound. Not only have you seen it with yourself and what's happened to you, but you've probably recognized some of these things that happen with children, maybe from your childhood and it happening to you because your parents did abuse by proxy to each other. Or maybe you're feeling it now because you're in one of these relationships and you're realizing that what has happened to you has also affected your kids because they've been pulled in. So you're probably feeling kind of like crap right now, and I understand that. And so I want to talk about, before we close this video out, let's talk about some healing. Let's talk about some restoration, okay? Because there's always that side of things. You can't have dark without the light, and vice versa, okay? So there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution here. There's lots of people that want you to think that. They want to write a self-help book. They want to publish their ideas, whatever. You know what? Let's cut to the chase. There is no one-size-fits-all scenario for any of us. We're all unique. We were all crafted by God specifically, okay? So we're all different. So let's just get that crap out of the way. There is no one-size-fits-all. So I'm going to give some scenarios here. I'm going to give some solutions. One or more of these may apply to you, they may not, and that's okay. But these are some things that absolutely work, that we know work, okay? First thing we got to do is we got to name what happened. We got to name it. No speculation, no guessing. We're going to, if we got to write it down on a piece of paper, we're going to name it, okay? Then we have the psychoeducation piece of this where we need to learn about it. And that's what this video is today, is it's me helping you name it, and it's me helping you understand it, okay? Why does it happen? What does it look like? Okay, you need to understand that, okay? And then you need to know, how does it operate, which we've also gone over in this video. So with this video today, you already have some tools. You know what it looks like, so you know what's happening to you. You know that it's wrong. You know that there's nothing wrong with you and that you didn't cause this and it's not your fault. Now you know how it operates, what it looks like on the outside looking in. Okay? And you've learned a pretty good, you know, it's only a 40-minute video, but you've learned quite a bit about what it, you know, what it actually is, what abuse by proxy is. So that's a first step, okay? Now you need to try to reconnect with trusted, affirming relationships. Some of these people that may have been kind of swayed into the direction by the proxy. Some of these are those folks that don't really know what's going on, and they're just trying to be helpful, and they're just trying to care. And you need to be able to reach out to some of these relationships, and you need to be able to go somewhere and sit down with them and say, hey, let me tell you what's really going on, so that they can see the truth. And it's like this huge aha moment, because they know something's not right and they desperately want to help, but they're only being fed the one narrative. Okay, so I know that this sounds impossible to do, but I guarantee you there's at least one or two people that are involved in this that have a very non-biased approach. And when they really see the truth and what's going on, you're going to have allies. You're going to have a support system. Okay? This is very, very important, okay? Because these are relationships that you had already established, and maybe they've suffered because of the abuse by proxy. But in the long run, these are good people that really just want to help and be there for you, okay? And they're going to be kind of critical to you getting to a point where you can get out of this relationship. Not only that, but also if there's children involved, they're going to be there to help you get resources for your children. Because that's still going to be a major component of this. It's not just about you getting out. It's about you getting the resources for your kids that have been pulled into this. It's a big thing. You're going to have to learn how to set healthy boundaries with both the abuser and their proxies. And you will see when these first two things are done, when you understand it, you figure out that it's not your fault. You know that it's wrong. And then most powerfully, you realize that it's harming your children. It is amazing the strength as a father or a mother that we get when it becomes defending or protecting our children. All of the fear, all of the anxiety, all of those things, the discomfort, the emotive dissonance that kept you from acting will go out the window, because now you have figured out that, hey, this isn't just hurting me, it's hurting my children. And this gives you an unbelievable amount of power and strength when it comes to protecting your kids. And so this is going to help you establish those boundaries between the abuser and the proxies. Okay? And last but not least, like I said, we are social animals. We're not designed to be alone. We're not designed to be isolated. We need to be understood. We need to be heard. And so you need to seek out environments where there's other survivors of this. And their voices are genuine and they're heard and they're believed, and your voice is going to be genuinely heard and believed. And that is going to be a tremendous support system. And that goes back to what I said at the very beginning of this video that I've done with my life, is that now my voice is out here and it's believable and it's trusted because you're looking at me and you're looking in the mirror and you're feeling what I'm telling you because you know it's real, and you see my passion and you know that it's real and that my heart is in this and my heart is in helping you. And that's what we're talking about, is that you get to that point where you are in a support system just like this, and then as you heal, you become the mentor to others and helping them navigate this. And that is the ultimate fulfillment, the ultimate validation, is being in a role like that. And I'm telling you, God can help you get there. I am simply an instrument, just like anyone else that's out here doing this, trying to help others, that's trying to heal. We're just an instrument. And it's a gift. It's a gift that God can take a painful life, years and years of pain and dysfunction, and he can do a finite brushstroke and completely change your life and put you in a role where you're turning all of those negative things into something that can be fruitful and helpful for other people. So I promise you, you can get there. If this video spoke to you today, if you're having a hard time with it, drop some comments, email me. I've promised this many times before. If I can't help you in an immediate way, then I will help you find those resources for yourself. My goal here is to do whatever I can to mitigate suffering that anyone who's watching this is going through. And I hope that it gives you some solace and some peace to know that you're not alone, that there's more than you think of us that have gone through this. And even though we feel like we're out on an island all by ourselves and we're isolated, we're actually not. There's more of us than you think. And if we stick together, we can make it through this. Until next time, thank you so much again for listening. God bless each and every one of you. Take care until next time. Thanks.